India's Economic Advisory Council member Shamika Ravi recently made a statement that has triggered considerable debate. Responding to concerns about the rupee potentially touching rupees 100 against the US dollar, she said that such a level is largely a psychological milestone. In other words, the number itself should not be viewed with alarm. Now, economists often look at exchange rates differently from ordinary citizens. They focus on capital flow, trade balances, and market dynamics. But there's a problem. When policymakers start treating currency depreciation as merely a psychological event, they risk overlooking what it actually means for millions of Indians. Because for the common citizen, a falling rupee is not a psychological phenomenon, it is an economic reality. Let's understand why.
India imports more than 80% of its crude oil requirements. Oil is purchased largely in dollars. When the rupee weakens against the dollar, India has to pay more rupees for the same barrel of oil. That higher cost does not remain confined to oil companies. It eventually reaches consumers. Petrol becomes more expensive, diesel becomes more expensive, and since diesel powers much of India's transportation network, the cost of moving goods across the country rises. When transportation costs rise, the price of vegetables rises, the price of food rises, the price of household goods rises, the price of everyday living rises. That is not psychology, that is economics. But the impact does not stop there. Many Indian companies have borrowed money in foreign currencies, especially dollars. When the rupee weakens, the amount they owe effectively increases. The same loan suddenly becomes more expensive to repay. This creates pressure on corporate balance sheets, expansion plans get postponed, investments get delayed, hiring slows down. In some cases, profitability takes a direct hit. Again, this is not psychology. This is financial stress. Now think about Indian students studying abroad. A weaker rupee means tuition fees become more expensive, accommodation becomes more expensive, living expenses become more expensive. Families that have carefully planned their finances suddenly find themselves paying significantly more. The same applies to businesses importing machinery, technology, electronic components, and industrial equipment. Their costs rise, and those higher costs eventually find their way into the prices paid by consumers. Yet we are told that 100 rupees to a dollar is just a number. Of course, nobody is arguing that exchange rates should be artificially fixed. No responsible economist would recommend that the Reserve Bank of India recklessly burn through foreign exchange reserves merely to defend an arbitrary level. Currencies move, markets adjust, exchange rates fluctuate. That is perfectly normal. But there is a difference between allowing markets to function and dismissing important milestones as irrelevant. Numbers matter because they represent real economic consequences. If inflation rises from 4% to 8%, we don't say it is merely a number. If unemployment rises, we don't say it is merely a number. If GDP growth slows sharply, we don't dismiss it as psychology. Then why should a currency crossing a major threshold suddenly be treated differently? The 100 rupees mark matters because it represents something tangible. It reflects how much more Indians must pay for the same goods and services in the global marketplace. It reflects the purchasing power of the rupee. It reflects the relative strength of the Indian currency. And perhaps most importantly, it reflects confidence. A nation's currency is not merely a medium of exchange, it is also a statement about economic credibility. When citizens see their currency steadily losing value against the world's dominant reserve currency, they naturally ask questions. Are we becoming more competitive? Or are we becoming more expensive in ways that hurt consumers? Are we attracting investment because of strong policies? Or are investors demanding higher returns to compensate for growing risks? These are legitimate questions, and they deserve serious answers. Because ultimately, the debate is not about a number on a currency screen. It is about the consequences that number creates in the lives of ordinary people. The rupee at 100 to a dollar is not just a statistic. It is not merely a psychological milestone. It is a price paid at petrol pumps, a price paid at grocery stores, a price paid by students abroad, a price paid by businesses importing goods, a price paid by every Indian household that feels the impact of a weaker currency. And that is why 100 rupees to a dollar is not just a number. It is a price every Indian pays. Thank you for watching. If you value independent journalism and sharp economic analysis, please like this video, subscribe to HW News Network, and support our work.